My name's Richie Torbett, and I own Networking and Computer Connection. We're an IT services company, so I deal with computer problems all day, every day, lots of phone calls, technical support. Andrea, when she called and asked me this, it's the very similar story. I could speak all day. Internet security is a pretty broad topic. There are a ton of different areas where you can lose information. So the one thing she asked me were to give you some reasons why you should be concerned with data security and your personal security on the internet. So I'm going to show you a few statistics, and then I'll give you some tips on some things you can do to protect yourself when you're online and some ideas. And most of these things will apply whether you just use a computer personally or whether you own your own business. All right, some statistics. This is of companies that lose all their data. This is pretty scary. 43% of companies that have a total loss of their data lose their server, just never reopen. 51% will close within 2 years. Only 6% will survive long term with the total loss of their electronic files. In today's society, now that everything has moved onto the computer, everybody's totally dependent on it. If your computers go down and that's where your accounts receivable are and you have no idea what people owe you, it's going to be tough to pay your bills. This is one that surprises a lot of people. 31% of PC users have lost all their files due to events beyond their control. And we see this every day with people coming in just with their personal computers. More and more, everybody has digital cameras. They've got pictures of their kids, wedding pictures, births, everything are on that PC, and they don't have a backup of it. And the hard drive dies. And having your files saved in 2 different places on the same computer is not backing it up. A lot of people think that that's good. They got it in 2 different folders. They're in good shape. That does not do you any good if the computer falls in the water or gets hit by lightning or gets stolen. And again, 93% of companies that lose their data center for 10 days or more will file bankruptcy in that year. So it's some pretty scary statistics. So the biggest thing, if you don't take anything else away from this today, is have a backup plan, identify what's critical to you, both on your home PC and your work PC. Even on your home PC, if it's just pictures, have those backed up. Any kind of personal financial data, that type of stuff. Have a good backup plan.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
Is an off-site, like an internet site, to back up a good option?
Yeah, those are good options, and they're getting a lot better. There's some things to look at. Some are better than others. You want to go with an off-site backup that's encrypted, so that if somebody gets into the data, they have to have the key or your password to be able to read the data. And some off-site backup places will actually store your data in multiple locations, so they have some redundancy. So if a disaster hits where their data center is, your data is in 2 places. But that's a very good option. It's always a good idea to have a backup in a location other than your business. You want your data off-site, either if you're doing it to tapes or external hard drives. Have it in a different location, so if you have a fire or natural disaster, you can get to that data. Some potential causes of data loss. A lot of these are common sense, and I've had clients lose them for all of these reasons. Of course, lightning, flood, fire. Hardware failure. I've had a lot of people have the misconception they think that hard drives never fail, the hard drive in your computer. That is not true at all. Hard drives are measured, it's called MTBF, it's mean time between failures. Most every hard drive will fail eventually if you own it long enough. So you should plan on it failing at some point and have a backup. Of course, human error. I know everybody's experienced this. You delete a file that you didn't mean to, or you accidentally reload Windows on your computer and it erases everything. And then what I'm going to focus a little more specifically on today is malicious software. Of course, everybody knows about viruses. They've been around for a long time. Spyware has become very prevalent. One of the newest things that's really growing is phishing. And I'm not talking about like with a fishing pole, but that's what I'm going to go into a little more detail on for you today is phishing, and I'll give you some ideas too on how you can protect your identity online. Basically what phishing is is it's a form, it's somebody trying to trick you into actually you voluntarily giving them the information that they need, as opposed to a virus or spyware which is just going to electronically try and steal it out of your computer. Phishing has become very successful. They've gotten really good at mimicking websites of your bank. They can make it look very real, and it's usually a two-pronged attack. You'll get an email that looks very realistic, and it will have links within the email, and you think you're going off to a website of a company you do business with where you put in your password or your credit card, and then they've actually tricked you into giving them the information to steal your identity. Here's some statistics on phishing. In 2007, 3.2 billion was lost to these attacks. Now that's just what gets reported. I think the number is probably higher because a lot of people are embarrassed, or if they just lose a few $100s, they're just, they'll try and take care of it themselves. 3.6 million adults reported actually being tricked into losing money just in 2007. That was up from 2.3 million the year before. One reason for that is the people who are doing this are getting a lot better at making the emails look realistic. And I got a couple examples that I'm going to show you that have just come to me in the past week. While I was getting ready for this, I've been saving some phishing examples. This is a really good one. This one is made to look like a Bank of America email, and I actually have a Bank of America account. This is one of the better ones. I actually called my wife on this to see if she had been trying to sign into our account. Basically, I got the email, says that myself or someone has tried to log into my account too many times, so they've frozen it, and you just need to click through on the link and reset your password. It seems innocent enough, but there are a couple things to check if you get one of these and it looks really real. Is look at these links, and I've broken it out separately down there. If you actually highlight your mouse over the links in the email, instead of it showing Bank of America, like on this specific example, it shows an actual IP address, that 84.19, and another, and after the images, you'll see there bankofamerica.com. It's not actually .com, they've actually got a .state on there. So that's going to take you off to a fraudulent site, and they're going to steal your information. Commonly spoofed brands, eBay and PayPal are the two #1 identities that are spoofed the most. There are a million different forms of emails out there for eBay and PayPal wanting you to reset your account. Banks are also very popular, like the one I just showed you. I've got an example coming up of an email from the IRS. There's some going around where it says you've got an income tax return coming. This was real popular right after April 15th. And all you need to do is log into the site and provide your information, and they'll cut you the check. Charities is getting to be a popular one, and this one's a little easier to spoof because churches tend not to have as much security, or nonprofit agencies. So they'll send an email, it'll look just like a nonprofit agency you're familiar with, and it'll have a link where you can put in a credit card and donate money to the charity, and they'll even have a really good sounding description of what it is you're supporting, make you feel good. And then they're, obviously the money's not going to go for good use. And the other one, it used to be an innocent thing. You get the email saying that there's a greeting card that a friend has sent you, and you click the link to it, and it's actually a nice little greeting card they've sent. Well, now those are being used as a fraudulent way. You get the email that says you got a greeting card, and you follow it. Several of those will actually download a virus onto your computer, which then will collect information on what you have on the computer. So be really careful if you get any emails on greeting cards. Look closely at that email and make sure you actually know the person who it says it's coming from, and you might even call them if you're suspicious at all and say, did you really send me this greeting card? And just to be safe, you may not open it at all. Here's the example of the one that I just received from the IRS that I was going to get a refund of $109. Here's an example of PayPal. Now, some of them, this was not a very good one, especially if the English is poor. Some of the English in this one, you can tell it was written by somebody outside the country, and they had a poor translation. So that's usually a real good clue. Just delete that right off the bat.
Is it best just to delete it, or is there a way to report it?
You can report it. Like the Bank of America one, you can actually, it's a good idea to report it to the institution and let them know. Yeah, and then what they in turn do is they report that their brand is being spoofed to the major security companies like Symantec, the companies that are writing antivirus software, and they add that into the phishing filters, so then they know. And I've got an example in here of what it looks like. The Bank of America one has been reported, and so I'll show you what comes up. There's two different things. Some people are too reliant on software. It is good to have software, so I want to tell you some of the things software can do to help you. The newest thing with your antivirus software is they have phishing filters, which will actually identify. If you may not realize it and you click on that email, if you have a phishing filter, it'll pop up and tell you, and I'll show you an example. I did this for you all. I clicked on the Bank of America. The phishing filter on my computer caught it. It came up and it said, you know, this is a reported phishing website. I still have the option to go to the website if I want to, but it says this is highly recommend against this. So that's where software can really help protect you. If that's one that's not foolproof though. You still have to use some common sense because that's just on the sites that have been reported. So there's always the chance it can be a brand new one. But going back to this, of course you want to have antivirus software. Spam filters on your email will filter out a lot of the phishing attempts coming in. It won't get it all. None of them are foolproof right now that I've seen. They just keep coming out every day with new ways to get spam around the spam filters. That's a constant fight. But they'll filter out a lot of it. Anti-spyware software, it's separate from antivirus software, and a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of your internet security suites now that you can buy will come with both. Because spyware is technically a different type of program, and your antivirus programs don't look for spyware on your computer. So you really want to have either a suite or two separate programs. And just like with the example I was showing you, some of the software will automatically block outgoing delivery. So some of the better software, even if you try to send information to it, it's going to block it if it knows that it's a malicious site. Here's one that I don't really understand. 11% of online adults don't use any type of security software at all. They just trust that nothing will happen to them. They're complacent. I don't need any type of antivirus software. And then another 45% only use what they can get for free. So they only use what's available as a free download or what a friend has. And in the world of security software for your computer, you really do get what you pay for. The free software can help, and some of it's not bad, but you really need to invest. It's worth spending a little bit of money on a good internet security suite. I'd listed just a few of the more popular brands, because one thing that we see in our business is a lot of people fall for there's some no-name brands on the internet, and you'll get pop-ups or emails, download this antivirus software, it's the best ever, and it's only $20. If you've never heard of the company that made it, Google it or do a little research. But you want to try and stick to one of the main security company. They do updates every week. They stay on top of what's the latest scams out there, and some of the smaller companies aren't as good at that. And I would recommend getting an actual suite of software instead of just the antivirus program. You can get just an antivirus program like Norton Antivirus, and that's going to be less expensive than the full suite. But a good suite will have antivirus, anti-spyware, the spam filter, the anti-phishing filter, and a firewall. And the biggest thing is don't let your license expire. Some people think that once they buy it, that's it, never have to worry about it again until they get a new computer. That's not necessarily true. Most of it is a one-year license, and you're going to need to renew it a year from now. Most new computers, what they come with is only good for 90 days. So, and a lot of people don't realize that. They think it's a brand new computer. I don't have to think about it for at least a year. And what happens after 90 days, the software will still be there. It still runs, but it won't download any updates. So if a new virus comes out or a new scam of some type, you won't be protected. The software is no longer communicating with their home server unless you have renewed it. All right, outside the software attempts, there's several things you can do that are just common sense things. One is be suspicious. Any email that you get, like the Bank of America one, if you question it at all, it's a good idea call the bank. Almost, I don't know of any bank that actually sends emails asking you to put in password or asking for information. And if you do suspect for some reason it might be real, just call them. Never reply to an email. You don't want to send personal information in an email. Don't put your credit card number, social security number, any of that in an email because that's easily intercepted or stolen. Another biggie is don't click on links embedded in emails, even if they look official. If it is something that you need to respond to or you do need, actually bring up Internet Explorer or Firefox and go to the website of that company. Log in there where you know you're actually on the correct site. Put the information in. Another biggie is, and all your major websites have it, but encryption. Don't go, if you're on just a small local website and it's not utilizing encryption, that's not a good place where you want to put in your credit card number or your personal information. And there'll be some ways you can tell when you're on the checkout page. VeriSign is a big company that does a lot of the credit card information, and there's a little symbol of the lock. You can also set Internet Explorer to warn you or to not allow you to put in information on pages that are unencrypted, so you'll get warnings. This is a big one that tempts a lot of people and gets a lot of people in trouble. This actually brings us a lot of business. Don't download free software from unknown sources, be it games, whatever it is. You get an email that's great new software, somebody forwards it to you. You definitely get what you pay for on there, and that kind of ties in. The biggest one we see are people downloading music from file sharing sites like LimeWire, Kazaa. That's really a bad idea. You might get that song for free that otherwise you'd have to pay 99 cents for, but almost all of those sites you also get spyware and viruses at the same time you're downloading that song. You're opening up a pathway between their server and your computer, and you're physically allowing permission to bring in files, and at the same time that song's coming in, you are getting other programs. We see that every day on people bringing in their home computers where their kids have been downloading all these songs, and now the computer is full of viruses and they're getting all these porn pop-ups. And so on those, if your kids really want music or you want it, I would highly encourage you to go to the sites where you have to pay for it. iTunes, Walmart, there are several out there. Typically the ones where you're paying for the song, you're going to be safe. They're not attaching anything to it. But some of these sites, that's how they make their money. They're helping you get the music for free, but they're getting paid to get the spyware on there. Another biggie is some of them that look tricky. You'll get a little pop-up on your computer saying it's running slow. Click here to solve this problem. Or click here to download this. You have spyware. Click here for $20. We'll fix the problem. Those are actually spyware. When you click that, we have a lot of people that actually pay that fee, and what essentially you're doing is paying them to download a virus. So they're not only taking your money, then they're creating you more problems that you're going to have to pay to fix. So don't do that. If you decide you do want an antivirus program, again, go directly to the website and download it, or go to a store and buy a CD and come back and load it on there. Another thing that I would recommend when you're purchasing online is use a credit card instead of a debit card. You got a little more purchase protection there. It's easier to dispute a charge with the credit card than with a debit card. And if it gets stolen online, it's a lot easier to dispute it with a credit card. Minimize the number of online sites that have your personal information. Now you can open a PayPal account, or Google has checkout. Most of your big stores now will accept those instead of your credit card. So what you can do is keep it to only 1 or 2 sites that have your credit card and personal home information, instead of, if you're buying a lot of stuff online, instead of 10 places having it, which increases your risk, because most of your big companies don't want your information to be stolen. They do everything they can to protect it, but hackers can still get in. So if you just have it in 1 or 2 places, you're decreasing the odds that it will be stolen. And another one that we've had several clients happen to is don't do business with an online merchant that won't accept credit cards or a third-party merchant account like PayPal or Google. I've seen several people, they thought there's just this great deal on eBay or one of the auction sites online, but it was just an individual in another state and they couldn't take a credit card, and I think it's perfectly safe, and I'm going to wire them the Western Union money. We've had several clients lose money doing that. That's never a good idea, because once you've wired that money, it's gone. And again, don't give out your bank account information online. Here's some tips on password security. All these different websites now, everything you do needs a password. And I know it's tempting to use the same password for every single website so that you just have to remember one. But that can be a bad idea, because all somebody has to do is compromise or get into one website, steal their password information, and then they'd have your access to all the accounts that you have. You wouldn't believe how many people use 1111 as their password, or just plain password. Don't use your name or your children's name or birth dates. Just common sense stuff, not things that are easy to guess. Try and use different passwords on every different website. Don't keep a file on your computer that's a list of all your passwords. A lot of people tend to do that so that they don't forget them. They keep it all in one easy to access computer file called passwords, so that then if somebody gets in, they have everything in one convenient location. And then again, with the phishing scams, there are several scams going around now where somebody will call you and say that they're calling from PayPal, and there's been trouble with your account and they just need you to confirm your password so they can straighten it out. So don't give out your password over the telephone either. Hang up, call back to PayPal if you really think that's true, or your bank, or whoever it is. And here's a good example of a way to do a password if you want it to be if you wanted to use password using a combination of letters, numbers, and symbols, and that would be really hard for somebody to guess that combination. So you can take a word that's common or easy for you to remember, and then just try and substitute some letters and symbols to spell the same thing. That's what we recommend to our clients. Just make sure if you make it really hard like that you do have it written down somewhere. We field a lot of phone calls for forgotten passwords. And I think we got just a couple minutes for questions, if you all have any questions or concerns.
One of the things that I was wondering about is we have been backing up our data and putting it in a fireproof safe. Does that still need to be outside the facility as well?
I would.
Is that a misconception?
Well, I would say yeah, only because I can give you an example. I had a client that they had a server and computers, and they were doing a good job backing up their server to tape every night. They took those tapes and put them in their fireproof safe. Well, they came in one morning and they had been robbed, which fits right in with yours. And the people who had broken in had stolen all the PCs and the server. And so the client called us in a panic, and we said, no problem, we've got loaner computers, we'll bring them down and get them in place. We'll restore from your tapes and have you back up and going. It was a big manufacturing facility. So we got down there with the loaner computers, got everything set up, asked them for their tapes. They said, okay, it's in the fireproof safe. They went to get the fireproof safe. That had been stolen. And all their tapes were in it. So they wound up with absolutely no data. They had, yeah. In this case, it wasn't a... Yeah, that's the thing. Computer tapes are very sensitive to heat. And a lot of your fireproof safes are made to keep your documents inside from catching on fire, but they'll still get warm enough inside that it will damage the tapes, and it won't.
Well, we're also using that encryption
Yeah.
outside, but so I guess I had a false sense of security that since it was in the fireproof safe, it should be fine. But
That's definitely better than nothing. And of course, combining that, if you've got a good backup that's offsite online, it sounds like you're way ahead of where most places are.
I hear a commercial for one on the radio lately that an offsite web-related offsite protection.
They are, and there are different levels. You know, you might do some research. Just Google the company name and see if it's somebody that's had a lot of complaints against them. That'll be all over the internet. Put in, just Google their name and review, or their name and complaint, and see if you get many hits. That's a good way. The better online data backup companies will have a couple nice features. One thing that some of them do, if you have a total loss of data, to pull all that data back over the internet can take forever if you've got a lot of company files. So what some of the bigger ones will do is overnight or same day air you hard drives that have all your data. So instead of you trying to download for days, and they'll also send that data to wherever you want in the country. Let's say your building burned down, there's nothing there. They'll overnight to wherever you've got a temporary office, or if you've got another office somewhere else, they'll do that. Also, some online places will keep more than one backup. That's a good idea. Some of them will keep as many as 30 backups, like one for each of the previous 30 days. Because a lot of times what might happen is that you might have an employee that accidentally deletes a key file that you really need. So it's got all your client data in it. And you may not realize it for a day or two. Well, once it backs up that night, if it backs up with that missing file, then it's gone. But if you've got 30 days of backup, yeah, we've had that happen several times.
Well, I did have an employee do that and delete all our AR files, and I called the service that had our backup. It was supposed to back up at 3 a.m. from our server, and they didn't have a current backup. But I had been backing it up by myself and saving it and sticking it into a firm file. So I had this I could pull out and use, but that was the true test.
Yeah.
I still don't trust all stuff for that reason. So it's all overkill, I guess.
Yeah, and it's really worth taking some time. What I recommend to people is sit down and actually make a disaster recovery plan when it comes to your data. List out what data is critical to your company, where do you have it stored, how many days backup in the event of and that's what we try and do. Like, we'll sit down with a client if they call us in and just help walk through that scenario, or bring up some questions that you might not have thought of, because it's definitely easier to do it on the front end than on the back end. I've got some horror stories. I hate it when clients come in and you have to tell them that their data is just all gone. Yeah.
One thing we did by accident, but it's turned out to be really smart, because apparently a lot of these phishing sites that fish with PayPal pick up their information off of eBay, which is not quite as secure as PayPal. And so my PayPal account is a different email than my eBay account is. And that really is a nice check, that if you get any email about PayPal on the one that's the email, then you know that it's not legitimate. And so that has saved us several questionable inquiries. And it was kind of just blind luck. We didn't plan it that way.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So they also have ERP systems. Are those the same thing as backup? I mean, are they still, where basically you have your software system at their facility, you run your business through their software. Is that the same thing? Is that the same safe scenario because it's encrypted?
Yeah, it's going to vary a little bit by company, but essentially what's happening there is all of your data is sitting on their server wherever they're located. Now, most of the bigger companies that are running those will have multiple servers, so that if one site goes down, you can still get to your data. And typically that data is encrypted. There are a bunch of different companies that do that. Almost for every different industry has some type of specific software. And for my business, we run a similar application. Our scheduling software all is web-based, so we can get to it from anywhere. And the main thing when you're going with a company like that, and typically you're paying them quite a bit per month, is make sure that they're doing data backups. What kind of precautions they're taking, because you'd hate to come in one morning and their site's down and them call you and tell you, well, we didn't have a good backup plan. You don't want to be totally relying on somebody else.
So are you working with those individuals? I mean, those type of companies, or is that something that you, for instance, does your company recommend ERP systems, or do you work with that?
We work with them, but typically we don't recommend any. Typically how we wind up working with it, like we work with a lot of legal and medical offices, and so for example at a doctor's office they'll have a practice management software that a lot of times is online. They will have chosen that through the trade group that they're in. We wind up working with it because they don't want, with problems they don't want to deal with them, they just call someone, we come in, so we'll wind up calling that third-party company for them and work out that piece. Now, a lot of that software also has the capability for you to download your files and make your own backup outside of their software. Most of it does. Most of it you can download the database.